Message to Pluto Killer, aka Mike Brown. Go to hell. Pluto was demoted from being a planet because it was found to have more objects in the similar or same orbit and is considered part of the Trans-Neptunian Object Collection or Kuiper Belt items because it's so far out there. So our solar system has 8 planets. The reasons it was removed from planet status is not the 2 following statements. A planet has to orbit the Sun if it's a planet orbiting this Sun and to be a planet in our solar system. If it orbits anything else as well as, it's not a planet. That's very important. If it orbits another planet, it's a moon, or it might share an orbit with something else. There are objects out there that kind of mingle and they don't really orbit the Sun exclusively. Pluto also technically qualifies as being a binary planet because its moon, Charon, is big enough and dense enough that they both orbit a central point in the middle of them. It's technically not really a planet moon, but okay. But it does orbit the Sun primarily. Most of it, they base it on a percentage. The majority of its mass is orbiting. Okay. Next. Object must be massive enough to be rounded by its own gravity, mainly or only. It has to be rounded, not perfectly round. More specifically, its own gravity should pull it into shape under hydrostatic equilibrium. It should be stable. It can't be still in the process of morphing from shape to shape. So it does qualify with these 2. And remember, like I said, it only can orbit the Sun. If it orbits another object, it can be considered a moon or some other item, but it can't be considered a planet. It must have cleared the neighborhood around its orbit, meaning its orbital pathway, it should be the dominant object in it. This is where Pluto fails, because Pluto shares its orbit with other objects. Now we're going to get to the other object, Eris, a dwarf planet, which is technically smaller than Pluto, but it's heavier, and it has a moon. Then the next one down is called Make, not making that up, with its own little dinky tiny toy, well, orbiting object. Then there's Namek, and Huma. This is the one that was discovered by Mike Brown as well. And several others have been as well. And it's not round. No, it's egg-shaped or some other damn thing. I'd make a joke about certain medical products you can buy at the store for certain issues. Okay, now why am I doing this video hating on Mike Brown? Because he calls himself Planet Killer, or Pluto Killer. He also called himself How I Killed Pluto and why it needed to be done or why it deserved to happen. This is an indication among scientists that criticize him heavily for him being effectively emotionally involved. He wants to be an iconoclast. Okay, so what planet instead of Pluto is a good example of planet? Oh, well, he's discovered one. He's calling it Planet 9. All right. Where is it? We don't know. Okay, do you have a picture of it? No. Do you have any clue what its orbit is? Not really. Has anybody critiqued your work? Oh, yeah. I'm one of the people who critiqued his work. I'm going to do it again? Oh, no. No, let's do a meta-study of Metacritics here. The definition of a planet, those are the 3 main ones that are, you can look up the definition of planet. Where does the word come from? It means wandering star. It means something that's like a star in the sky, but it moves around in a way that doesn't match the stars. It moves with reference to the background. Okay, so your hypothetical 9th planet, Mike Brown, aka Pluto Killer, do you have an object moving around against the background of stars to say is a 9th planet? No, he doesn't. Okay, so what is your basis for it? Well, it's inferred by watching orbital deviations of other objects that aren't planets. They're dwarf planets and other objects. Okay, and are there any other possible explanations? Now, Mike Brown says that he is over 75% sure that it's a planet, not a group of objects or any other aberration. Okay, that's nice. What did anybody else say? Well, I don't agree with him. Okay, thank you, Mike Brown. So now let's stop listening to Mike Brown for a minute. Okay, Aries dwarf planet. It's confirmed as being an object that moves very slightly with reference to the background, but it is confirmable as being heavier because of its orbit pattern behavior, heavier than Pluto. But it's physically smaller. It shouldn't be qualified as Planet 9 because it's smaller, right? Has it cleared its orbital path? No, it hasn't. It's not the majority object. And the Earth is, by contrast, billions of times heavier in mass than the rest of the material in the same orbit. It's the dominant object. All right, let's try for another one. Let's see here. Planet 9, alternate hypothesis and inference. Batyin, which is the other person besides Mike Brown who decided this had to happen for some damned reason, was cautious about interpreting the results, saying, until Planet 9 is caught on a camera, it doesn't count as being real. All we have now is an echo or an inference of it. So Batyin, or we'll just call him the Batman, because I can't pronounce his name correctly, so let's just call him Dr. Bat, is the rational one of the two. There's no positive proof of the existence, there's only an inference. See also Planet X and Niburu being lens flares and deliberate bullcrap about the subject, rather than just give us a damn orbital path and tell us where the damn thing is, or shut up about it. What is he doing? What is Mike Brown doing that's any different than a Niburu-tard? He used a computer math routine and came up with an assumption. Okay, what else? Brown puts the odds for existence of this planet number 9, not being Pluto, being 90%. Greg Laughlin, one of a few researchers who knew in advance about the paper, gives it an estimate of 68% possible of being a planet. Other skeptical science said we need more data, and we're not going to confirm this. Brown thinks there's enough data to mount a search for a new planet. Okay, and the latest deal, God help me, someone uploaded a copy of the video threatening his own channel, and I'm sorry, where he actually showed some news channel deciding to post this Planet 9 idiot's hypothesis credulously. Not even an attempt to okay, fine. Brown is supported by Tim Green, director of NASA's Planetary Science Division, who said the evidence is stronger now than it's ever been before. We've all heard that a lot about other subjects. Do you have a picture of it or a positive location of where it is? Most of the locations of an orbit that could be there have been completely debunked. They can't find it in the majority of the orbit because the majority of the orbit would make it move too slowly for us to see, because the orbit would be more than 300 years. Unless it's really close to the Earth. Next. Yes, it's going to take a century for us to confirm this. Long after he's dead and has annoyed the snot out of me personally. It's all about me. Tom Levinson concluded that for now, Planet 9 seems the only satisfactory explanation for everything now known about the outer regions of the solar system. Oh, really? Alexander Morbilibile, who reviewed the paper for the Astronomical Journal, concurred, saying, I don't see an alternate explanation that offered by Batkin and Brown. Inclination instability due to massive undetected objects, meaning more than one object, therefore not an object that would A, be considered a planet, because B, it's more than one object in the same pathway, therefore it's not a planet according to their own blasted rules. It could be a clump of objects moving. A bunch of smaller objects moving almost like a planet wouldn't be considered a planet. It would be considered an asteroid field or something. Undiscovered mass in addition to this, but in the same orbit. Again, not a planet, so it's not a planet. Third object. Object in lower eccentric orbit. A bunch of unpronounceable names are proposed that the 4 detached objects with the longest orbital periods, with those apparently in, anyway, really ridiculously bizarre orbits. Okay. And then it gives a list of object types that could be qualifying at it. Location, existence, and is close to the perihelion. Okay, basically, in order to locate the thing, we'd have to get lucky in its 300 or 400 year duration minimum for its orbit, for it to be moving relative to the background of the stars for us to see it. Statistically speaking, that's not very likely. So it's a non-disprovable, non-provable hypothesis, not a theory, and it is not the only explanation for this. But Pluto Killer, yes, that's his handle on Twitter, wants this to be the 9th planet very badly. So let's review Pluto and Eris, which are the 2 largest objects that are not considered planets. They're considered dwarf planets. Being the biggest dwarf in the bunch, that's like the littlest giant, okay? Pluto and Eris are easily double the diameter of Mekmek, and the next one down, Unimima, which was discovered by Mike Brown, isn't round enough. It's not a sphere. What about Sedna, or 2007 OR10, or Guer, or Orcus? His proposal is an object that's almost as big as Neptune, that has all the characteristics of Planet X and Niburu, except for the fact that there's not even a lens flare image of it. And I'm supposed to put up with, I'm sorry, this is all about me right now. I'm supposed to put up with news channels posting this horse shit and not say the obvious thing. He's feeding off Nibiru's mythos to gain views. How many of you knew the name of the person who encouraged the demotion of planet Pluto as a planet? How many of you knew his name before he did? This is obviously, he's telling the same story as Planet X, including the fact that it's because of the duration of the orbit, at least several hundred years, we are not going to be able to confirm this very easily. Okay. And the other alternative explanations, we have to ignore them. All of them point to that same factor that Pluto has. It's not a single object, or it's not an object that's cleared its pathway. A planet would create a sudden change in orbits and cause them to adopt an orbit that would accommodate for it but still be stable without it. An intermittent passing of a planet would cause an odd orbit, but it would have to also be a stable orbit. They're all in stable orbits that are a little weird looking. So he's talking about an off-axis object threading the needle between them, causing this pull. And if you look at the diagram where it's positioned, it's that it tugs them into that area. And then they stay in a stable, long-term orbit on something that's intermittent. Or it could be the fourth option. It's another ring that isn't completely symmetrical or round orbiting the sun that has an odd, eccentric orbit of material that's egg-shaped. Here's the sun, and here's the end of the orbit, and it goes way out there. There are lots of examples of that kind of object. Most of these dwarf planets and trans-Neptunian objects and Kuiper belt items all have these weird orbits. But oh no, it must be a single large planet instead of a bundle of material, sort of like the Oort cloud can provide. The Oort cloud is asymmetrical as hell. Final thoughts. The guy who wants to be known as Pluto Killer wants to replace Pluto with a planet that he would probably like to have named after him. I think he's an idiot. Is it possible he's right? Sure. But it's literally a hypothesis interpreting the data, which is pure science. And that his insistence that he must be over 60% right is not corroborated by anybody. And his bias is hanging out obscenely. I'm an extreme amateur, but I can see him practically foaming at the mouth to get this done. Anyway, if we put some satellite-based telescopes in orbit and find the thing, great. But it has to put up with it having to be able to clear its own pathway. Something that large, that far out, hasn't been detected. There's no corroboration for it. Just like looking for Planet X and Niburu, no confirmation available. He's no different than the Niburu tards. So why is he being given airtime? Because someone at NASA agrees with him? This is not consensus science. This is cowboy science. I don't know if I'm going to edit this. It's not going to ever be satisfactory. I'm just going to include all the links below. You decide. But I don't like the bias, and I don't have. And the fact is that if they want to demote Pluto, they can't promote this one. It's just so convoluted. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with it, and comment below if you wish.